Now, last weekend, one of the great occasions of the sporting year was taking place. It was taking place in Madrid, where Real Madrid played Barcelona in what's known as El Clásico. Real Madrid beat Barcelona 2-0. And for those of us who saw Manchester City go to Madrid in the Bernabeu Stadium and beat Real Madrid in the Champions League first leg last week, the fact that Real Madrid, who looked very poor on the night, were able to beat Barcelona and beat them, it seems convincingly, will tell us something about Barcelona and indeed the strength of the Spanish league. It's a pleasure now to welcome to the stand Richard Fitzpatrick, a journalist living in Barcelona and someone that has been enlightening us about the state of the Spanish game. Richard, when this result came through and we can't see Spanish football now, we don't have access to it, it was kind of gave us a perspective, because we had seen Madrid labouring against Manchester City, and yet they were, it seems, able to beat Barcelona relatively comfortably. What do you think of? First of all, tell us about the game and how it worked out. Was it as comfortable as the scoreline suggests?
Yeah, there was definitely the sensation or the feeling that this was two mediocre teams. The level has dropped from a decade ago. It was, in a sense, it was the oldest cliche in the book, but it was a game of two halves. Barcelona had several clear-cut chances in the first half, and they could have put Real Madrid away. You got the sense that Real Madrid were mentally very fragile, having lost midweek to Man City at home, which puts them under huge pressure in that tie in the Champions League. And this came on the back of a couple of other defeats domestically to Real Sociedad and Levante, and a draw at home to Celta Vigo. So they'd been on a very poor run. So they were really, really vulnerable. But they weathered that first half and they blew Barcelona away in the second half. Gerard Piqué significantly said after the game that this was probably the poorest Real Madrid side he had faced in his 12-year career at Barcelona. Barca looked a shadow of themselves.
Yeah.
Messi in particular wasn't on form at all. He's struggling. I have it on good authority with an injury, but he missed two good chances, one in either half when he was put clear, which normally he would finish off. So it looks dispiriting for both sides.
Yes, and we'll come to Messi in a minute. Richard, the first goal for Madrid was scored by Vinicius Jr., young Brazilian. We saw him against Manchester City. You told us last week he can't score to save his life, and you weren't proved wrong in the Manchester City game, but he managed to score on this occasion. He's only a young lad. Is he a teenager, or is he?
Yeah, 19.
Yeah, 19. He looked very gifted against Manchester City, but also very naive and very young. But he got the goal that sort of gave Madrid the lead, didn't he?
He did, and it was the killer goal. It came on the back of a white wave of attacks, about 10 minutes of a sustained pressure. So once that goal went in, you knew that was it for Barca. The Real Madrid, the people in Madrid are raving about Vinicius, talking about vitamin V, that the team needs vitamin Vinicius. You're right to flag his age. He's still only 19. He burst on the scene last year with Real Madrid. They had bought him when he was a 16-year-old, but he didn't travel over from Brazil until he was 18. They kept him on ice for a couple of months last season, and then when Lopetegui was sacked, Solari, the new manager at the time, brought him in, and he was sensational. But his goal scoring is a sticking sticking point. The goal he got against Barca at the weekend was his 4th in 36 league games.
Yes.
He's missed unbelievable chances. He missed a clear-cut chance against Man City.
Yes.
Somebody at El Mundo just said he's always walking the tightrope between genius and ridicule. But yeah, he is young, and Jorge Valdano, the great sage at Real Madrid, a former player and manager at the club, he said people should focus on what he can do and not what he cannot do at this stage.
Yes.
There's room for improvement. Sure, maybe he will come around, but you also have to look at things in the context. This guy's been positioned as Real Madrid's great saviour. Now he's 19,
and he's come into a bad team, which a mediocre team, which for a promising young footballer is about the worst thing that can happen to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, the Gareth Bale. Funny enough, Ireland have been drawn against Wales in the Nations League or whatever they call it down the road. So we may meet Gareth on a working day, but he doesn't have too many working days. It's remarkable from this distance to imagine they could have such important games that Real Madrid, and he wouldn't play a part really in either of them. I think he came on for the last few minutes of the Manchester City match and didn't come on at all against Barcelona, sitting on the bench. I mean, and he's on, what's his salary again?
Oh, take home about 18 million a season.
After tax.
Best paid player in the squad.
So, what is it? Is it the fact that he is misbehaving? Is it the fact that Zidane simply doesn't like him? How much of it? He's been there 6 or 7 years now, is it?
Yeah, correct, 7.
Yeah. He doesn't speak the language, which is mind-boggling, or a combination of all those things.
I think there's substance in all of those elements. He's still 30. He should be in the prime of his career. He's 5 years younger than Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo has scored, I think it's 37 goals in 38 games for club and country this season. Bale hasn't scored in the league for Real Madrid since September the 1st. He hasn't scored at the Bernabeu Stadium since last year, March last year. He's all the signs of a player who's washed up. I think he is, as you suggest, an isolated, detached figure at the club. He doesn't speak the language. We've spoken before. Marcelo says he talks to him through sign language.
Yeah.
He as a player on the pitch, he looks, as someone described him at the weekend, like a hologram. He is absolutely plagued by injuries, which is a big problem, and he's also just getting hammered by the press. He came on as a sub against Man City, and that they were leading 1-0, and within 10 minutes they were 2-1 down. He didn't play a part in that, but he gets abuse in the press for that entry, and how the game turned almost by chance with his arrival. You also mentioned the relationship with Zidane. I think that is key. Zidane said it was a very undiplomatic thing, and it was a silly thing of him to say at the time. Maybe he wanted to provoke a reaction, but he said during the summer, if Bale leaves in the morning, it would be better. The club were trying to get him off the books, and the sale was lined up to China, but it fell through at the last minute. The club pulled out of it. So he came back. Bale came back all guns blazing at the start of the season, and this is typical of his personality. He's done this before. He did it in the Champions League final against Liverpool so memorably a couple of seasons ago, where he had it in, or he had a chip on his shoulder at a point to prove to Zidane. He'd been kept out of the side most of that season in 2017, 2018, and he scored those 2 great goals, the bicycle kick we all remember. So this season he did the same again. The first 3 games in the season he was excellent against Celta Vigo away. The first game scored 2 goals in his next game and provided an assist, but since then he's disappeared or he's been invisible.
There's something strange about this, Richard, in that he never had a reputation of being a bad boy. His reputation when he left Spurs to go to Madrid, was of a good professional. He gives all the signs when he's playing for Wales of being totally committed, and a popular member of the Welsh squad, a leader as well. So there's something mystifying to those of us watching from here, that it has come to this, and it's hard to explain in terms of his previous form, if you like, at club and international level.
Yeah, you're dead right to flag this point. The club have never had a problem per se with his professionalism. He always he's not an insubordinate guy, or he's not a troublemaker. He's not an aimer. He's not out in the nightclubs at night time, or he turns up for training and stuff on time. But he has all the appearance, and he said this at the start of the season, that he wasn't happy at Real Madrid. And you're also right to flag that he has always been a great leader for Wales, and I think this comes back to the cultural issues, that the fact he hasn't assimilated culturally, that he was bought as the heir to Ronaldo, most expensive player in the world. He was bought to be the leader of that team, and he hasn't stepped up. That is difficult when you don't speak the language and you don't have the personality of Cristiano Ronaldo to drag a team and put them up on your shoulders and carry them forward. He can't make a team speech or small things like that. So I think all those elements feed into it, and that patchy relationship with Zidane as well.
Of course. Has he ever expressed a desire to leave the club? I mean, the thing that you would expect from a professional after 6-7 years, when things weren't working out, long before now, to have said, look, I'm not happy. I'll take a wage cut. I just want to play. I want to have had a career. In this instance, he appears to be sort of going along with it. A player like him should never be going to China.
Yeah, you'd wonder what's going on in his private life, what kind of advice he's getting. His agent is a really strong character, Jonathan Barnett.
He's one of the more respected agents in Britain. A lot of them are not terribly respected because they're not terribly honest.
Yeah. I wonder what advice he's given him. He's on this sweetheart contract, which he's another 2 years to run after the end of the season. Bale himself, when he's interviewed, he says he repeatedly makes the point that his family, his wife and children, love the life in Spain. Perhaps the wind and the rain in Manchester mightn't be so appealing to him, or further afield. But it is confounding why he digs in and stays there when he is obviously so unhappy.
Right. Now, Barcelona, where you're talking to us from, Richard, I saw the newspaper headlines that you sent to me. It's tough stuff. Let's talk first about Lionel Messi, who is the greatest player we believe we've ever seen, many of us. What's going on?
Yeah, he's kind of like an island at the moment. He's just not been surrounded by good enough players at the moment, and players who are shrinking in his presence. His form, he was poor at the weekend against Real Madrid because of this. He's not fully fit, but all season he missed the start of the season, so he's missed a fifth of the season, but he's still 5 goals scored more than any other player in the league, 5 more assists than any other player in the league, which is extraordinary. And but the quality around him is really letting him down. And players like Frankie de Jong, who was a marquee signing for the club in the summer, you know, the best midfielder arguably in Europe last season. He was electric for Ajax, but he's been played out of position. He's a holding midfielder, plays like a double pivot in a 4-man midfield. He plays deep in midfield, but he's been shunted out to the left side of a 3-man midfield, asked to play more attacking play. He says himself that he always just looks for Messi when he has the ball now. That's the number one he thinks about when he gets the ball. So the players don't have the character to do things by themselves. This is for all of the problems that Neymar would bring, but at least he did have the personality to take on an opposition himself. There aren't players around that Barca team that can do that at the moment, and obviously there's very clear signs of ageing. 5 of that team on Sunday night, excluding Rakitic, who came on as a sub, and Luis Suarez, who's injured, are over 30. There was a study done in the middle of the group stages in the Champions League earlier in the season, and of the 32 teams, Barca were last in kilometres run on the pitch.
Yes. Now, is there a sense that, you know, the club has let him down? They've signed a lot of pretty average players. They signed Frankie de Jong, they're playing him out of position. And that all of the stuff with the president of the club hiring a PR agency to smear the players on social media, all of that stuff has isolated Messi, disenchanted him, demoralised him maybe. Also, his fondness for Neymar, who is not a very good professional, but Suarez and Messi made up a front 3 that worked for Messi. Neymar's personality, maybe he likes him, obviously, because it appears Messi's willing to turn a blind eye to Neymar the playboy.
Yeah, there's you hit the nail on the head there. Firstly, the disenchantment he has with the club. I can't recall him being so upset with the club's hierarchy. He was bucking mad when he came out. We spoke about it about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and had a public battle with the sporting director Eric Abidal for maintaining that it was Messi was responsible for sacking the coach. That wasn't the case. It was initiated by the club's directors. The president, we mentioned this last week, I think. The White Hankies were out at the Camp Nou in their home game against Eibar. This hasn't happened in over a decade. There's deep disenchantment at the club with how it's been run, that they're paying this all this money to what seems like a shady operation or shady business practice. The idea that you would smear your players to a firm in Argentina, and this comes on the back of this is what really agitates the fans. This comes on the back of a couple of years of crazy spending in the market, where they've let the team deteriorate without replacing key players. So there's a lot of disenchantment there with Messi mentally. The idea he fosters that Neymar could be the solution to these problems is kind of probably that it's like an ex-lover, isn't it? That you'd hanker after the good times, but 3 years into the renewal of the relationship, it goes pear-shaped.
I'm running through the list as you speak in my mind, and I know exactly what you're saying. Yes,
like he's from the evidence. He's 28 now, and he's clearly a troublemaker off the pitch, and he be troubled by injuries on it. So I don't think he might be the solution. But what Messi is, and there is sense to this, is he needs a big player alongside him to share the burden. He also needs that kind of style of player, a winger to disorient the opposition. They look so flat when they're playing. The people here talk about them being like an Olympic handball side. They're just throwing the ball around the pitch with no real purpose.
Right.
So that's what.
They face a rather severe test now. They have the away goal against Napoli, so they're massive favourites to beat Napoli at the Camp Nou, and Napoli are no great shakes. That's a big match, though, isn't it, for them now? That's a big pressure match for them to get through that.
It is. That is a banana skin because yes, they've got the away goal. They'll take them back to the Camp Nou, where they haven't lost in the Champions League since 2013. That's the longest unbeaten record at the moment in the Champions League. But people will recall last year the same round against Lyon, a mid-ranking French team. They were 0-0 from the first tie. They went back to the Camp Nou, and 10 minutes into the second half, they were on the ropes. It looked as if Lyon were going to get an away goal and go through, but then Messi came alive, and they finished out the game 5-1. He scored 2 goals and provided 2 assists. And a few 6 weeks later, they were tumbled out of the competition by Liverpool so dramatically.
Yes.
So that defeat will weigh heavily on them. Historically the most embarrassing defeat in their 100 years playing the game. So they're fragile mentally. They've also got several players running on empty, half injured or not fully fit. They would have brought a first team squad of about 14 players to the Bernabeu at the weekend. They would have bulked that up with a few academy players. So they look very, very vulnerable at the moment.
Just a final question, Richard, about Lionel Messi and his relationship with fans and with the media. Is there ever a scintilla of criticism, or has he, it would be outrageous if he hadn't so secured his place among the pantheon of the world's great sportsmen that he is a treasure to be always admired, respected, if not even adored? Does all of this, does he never get, there's always one, it used to be me, does he never get a critique from the fans or from the media? Is he just a god?
Oh, and
he should be, I think, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, in the People's Republic of Catalonia, he's an absolute god.
Yeah.
It would send shivers up your spine listening to 100,000 people in the Camp Nou.
Yes.
Chanting the deep throat chant, Messi, Messi.
Yeah.
Through the games. He's absolutely untouchable.
Good.
It was noticeable, like the difference in the affection Real Madrid had for Cristiano Ronaldo. It's just paled into comparison.
Right.
And Messi is untouchable.
And just to add to add a question to that, Richard, when he travels to Madrid in particular, the Bernabeu, is he equally respected and admired, albeit perhaps a bit reluctantly, by the fans of Los Blancos?
It's an excellent question, Eamon. He more than admired, he's absolutely feared.
Yes,
they talk about,
so, yeah.
They talk about it, and this was the talk in the run up to the game at the weekend. It's Messi's garden. He's an unbelievable record there. They had won their last 4 games at the Bernabeu. He scored, I think it was 11 goals in 15 games there. So they're absolutely terrified by him. They have historically, I remember in 2005 they gave Ronaldinho a standing ovation, but that has never happened with Messi because it makes their blood run cold.
Right.
The sight of him.
Okay, thanks very much, Richard, for that report from Spain, where I would have to say to you and to our listeners, it doesn't look like the Champions League is heading to Spain this year, but we shall see. Richard Fitzpatrick in Barcelona, thank you very much. Thanks to